We actually had quite the thunderstorm last night, and it was pretty windy. So first order of business is to open that back up, and then we can check on the raised bed garden. Tomatoes are putting on their fruit. There's one here. And see, many of the tomato plants have actually started leaning. I probably could have kept the sides of the greenhouse open last night if it wasn't for this. I really didn't want these plants, now that they're getting kind of heavy, to be whipped around in the wind. I've had tomato plants get topped, or the main growing point just completely get snapped in the wind, and it's a really sad situation. You really don't get much yield out of that plant. The peppers have really started to leaf out. What we did with these pepper plants is actually what I said I didn't want to do with my tomato plants. We actually went ahead and cut the top off and encouraged all of this side growth. And with peppers, doing so actually makes a sturdier plant that in theory produces more fruit. Did you guys see this in the background? There's a few kisses of red over here. And I don't see anything coming up yet, but I did plant some bush beans. The marigolds are getting ready to be able to go in too. We'll come back later to stake those tomato plants, and I'll talk about the system that I'm going to have in here. But for now, let's check on the raised bed garden. Good morning. Good morning. Some real good heads are starting on the cabbage. So far I haven't noticed any cabbage looper damage on any of my brassicas. So I better knock on wood, because next week these probably are all going to look like Grandma's lace doilies, but for now, everything looks really good. These are the broccoli that I harvested last week. I've kept them in the garden for their little side shoots here that mature into little florets and we can harvest. But pretty soon, we'll be harvesting the rest of these and then taking these out. I actually plan to put in some Kajari melons over here. I ran out of trellis space for them, but that's okay. I have experience in the past where Kajari melons, when they ripen, they very readily will fall off of the vine and off of the trellis and crack. So I think having them ramble a little bit in the bed this year will help that. I did go ahead and stick some sweet potatoes in the ground here. Doesn't look like any of them are coming up, but by next week we should see them. Last year I grew my sweet potatoes on this trellis, and the vines got really long and beautiful, which was great. Problem being, the plants put so much energy into their greens, into the foliage, that we really didn't get very many potatoes. Our first year growing sweet potatoes, I actually did them in these shorter raised beds, and I got a ton of potatoes. And what I had been doing is actually mowing the paths here, and it kept those greens trimmed back, and I think that allowed the plant to put much more energy into the tuber. You can eat the sweet potato greens, but that's not the reason that most of us grow it. These guineas. Do you mind trying to shoot a garden tour here? Go on. Go on. Go on. The blueberry plants are putting their fruit on. Look at how awesome those look. The tag that came with, oh my goodness. Oh, bunnies. Looks like our bunnies got blown off of this last night. Hang on. Oh, that wasn't fun, was it? You guys all right? We have had the tops blow open in windstorms before. It's why we always make sure to try and keep them latched, but I've never had one of them blow off of the cinder blocks before. And I thought we came through this unscathed. I mean, we did, but I thought really nothing was disturbed. I was wrong. Anyways, like I was saying, these blueberry plants will get 7 feet tall, and they'll also get like 7 feet wide. So this will be a really great wall of blueberries in probably several years, but I can't wait for it. I don't think, oh, I'm wrong. See, these are Alpine Strawberries right here. None of them look ready though, but that's really exciting. I actually just harvested quite a lot from the greens bed. You can tell a little bit that I have been in the dinosaur kale here, but this red Russian has come back with vigor. Look at this head of lettuce. Isn't it beautiful? This thing here is elderberry, and this is about 5 feet tall now, and it's starting to put on blooms. We have 9 elderberry plants, I think 4 different varieties. Super excited about this. They're gonna get nice and tall. They're gonna produce lots and lots of berries for elderberry syrup, elderberry jams. Looks like some of them are a little bit damaged from the wind, but nothing too bad. The asparagus bed is looking different, isn't it? We're starting to really slow down on our harvest of our asparagus. It's really only decently harvestable for about 60 days, and I think we're about there. So right now it's important for us to let the rest of these fern out, grow blossoms, collect sun throughout the year, and then at the end of the year, put all of that energy down into the crown, and we'll be able to harvest again and harvest more next year. This is my cilantro. I let it go to flower. And the cilantro blooms are actually a favorite of wasps. And while you may feel like you don't want to attract wasps to your garden, you actually do. It may be one of the reasons that we don't have cabbage looper damage on our brassicas. Wasps actually use grubs and things for their protein source as they raise their young. So as they're here foraging on nectar, they're also going to be collecting protein. It's like one of my cilantro plants is laying over. I don't really want that to happen because I do have some itty bitty asparagus crowns that I put in here, and I don't want them starved for light. So I'm going to take out the plant that fell. Smells lovely. Probably tastes terrible now that it's bolted though. After the cilantro flowers have been pollinated and then the flowers turn into seed, that seed is actually coriander. So if you like the coriander spice, go ahead and let your cilantro bolt and collect the seed. This plant is actually grown from seed that we collected a few years ago. At the moment, this is one of my favorite flowers in the garden. This is Peruvian Zinnia. Look how tiny it is compared to a normal zinnia. It's adorable. Yep. Some more strawberries here next to our flowering thyme, which the wasps also seem to like. And my elephant garlic here has actually started to do something kind of cool. It's putting on garlic scapes. And the scape is essentially the flower of the plant, but I do know that some people, when they see these, they go ahead and snap them off to allow the plant to put more energy into the bulb, which is what we eat. You can chop these up, these garlic scapes, and put them in stuff like scrambled eggs or really anything you want to cook with, and they're a lovely, lovely flavor. So I think I'm going to do that, but not today. Our pole beans are doing awesome. One of my subscribers, Marianne, actually sent this variety to me. They're making it. They're going to climb all over this. It's going to be awesome. And here there's some red cabbage. Starting to head up. It's a little bit behind the green cabbage. And then over here, this is the purple cauliflower. Look how big it's getting. And this one looks like it might be a little bit past peak. See how it's starting to open up? Where this one is a lot more tightly clustered. This one I probably need to harvest today. There's more. It's coming on. This is actually the same thing, planted at the same time. And these ones have not started to put on heads yet. And that's something that's happened to me every year that I've grown this purple cauliflower, is it seems to come to maturity at pretty significantly different times, but it hasn't been a bad thing. It just means that I get really a longer harvest. I don't really ever harvest enough to be able to put up, but that's okay. We have lots of fresh cauliflower for a longer span of time. I cannot wait for these prickly pear blooms to open. This is going to be quite the sight to behold. Much like the garlic, onions also put up a shoot in the middle, and I like to let my onions bloom. It does decrease their storage lifespan, but we don't go ahead and dry and store onions like you'd see in a braid or whatnot. I actually chop up and freeze my onions, so I don't need them to last a long time in like at room temperature. So I like to be able to let the pollinators take advantage of the onion, and then I can collect the seed. There's quite a few of them coming in. Thankfully, not too long ago, probably a couple days ago, I did come back through the tomatoes in this garden and give them a little bit more support. The tomatoes look absolutely fine, which I'm super happy about. These ones are the Brad's Atomic Grape. And as you can see, we'll be eating some of these pretty soon. This is a pretty interesting thing that this plant did. It's actually fused together. This basically put out two suckers right here. They're fused and they do separate a little bit closer to the top. But isn't that wild? This is actually a place that we haven't been since last season, and I've gone ahead and given what I've called the chicken garden to my kids. Much earlier in the spring, before we had our last frost, my kids came down here with some watermelon seeds that they had harvested from last year, and they planted a bunch of them, and basically all of them have germinated. All of these poles that you see here, they're all marking a watermelon that they've planted. See here? You can tell that's a watermelon. They think they remember that it was seed collected from a golden watermelon. Usually golden watermelons also have a golden leaf to them, and these look green, so I guess it's going to be a surprise. We'll see what we get. Could be a cross. They also have a Brad's Atomic Grape. I think this is going to be the first tomato that we're going to get to harvest this year. And I was a little bit worried about their little tomato plants in here with the weather that we had, but it looks like everything was small enough that it fared well. So all in all, nothing is worse for wear. Super happy about that.
And you stayed on the ground while I was high. Yes, you. I deserve to be unheard, but I want you to see that you